The Untapped Revolution. When women know their power. What if I told you that we're sitting on the most powerful untapped resource for global transformation? A force so potent it could revolutionize economies, reshape societies, and solve our most pressing challenges. Yet we've systematically undervalued, underestimated, and underutilized it for centuries. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Renesha Berry, a truly extraordinary confidence coach whose transformative work is changing the landscape for Black women professionals across America. Renesha doesn't just coach women, she awakens giants. She helps women recognize the power they've always possessed, but were conditioned to doubt. Her revolutionary question shakes the very foundations of how we structure our world. If every woman knew her power, what would the world look like? This isn't just a philosophical question, it's an economic imperative, a moral obligation, a vision of possibility that demands our urgent attention. The data tells a stark and sobering story. Women make up only 42% of the global workforce, despite representing half the world's population. They hold just under a third of leadership positions globally, and they continue to earn significantly less than their male counterparts. 83 pence for every pound men earn, dropping to a mere 75 pence for mothers compared to fathers. But these aren't just cold statistics, they represent millions of innovations never created, problems never solved, perspectives never considered, potential never realized, lives never fully lived. As Renesha Berry so eloquently articulated in our conversation, when women don't recognize their power, we all lose. But when they do, when they truly do, worlds change. Think about that for a moment. Worlds change, not just individual lives, not just organizations, but entire worlds. Systems of thought, economies, cultures transformed by the simple yet revolutionary act of women recognizing their inherent power. Let me share what happens when women begin to recognize and step into their power. In developing economies across the globe, researchers recognized a fundamental problem. We couldn't effectively measure women's empowerment. How can you cultivate what you can't even define? Traditional metrics focus narrowly on economic indicators, missing the complex social, political, and personal dimensions of power that shape women's lives. So they created something revolutionary, the Women's Empowerment Metric for National Statistical Systems, or WIMPS. This framework wasn't just another academic exercise. It was a radical act of seeing women in their fullness. For decades, women had been reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet, their contributions measured solely by their economic output. The WIMS framework shattered this limited perspective, incorporating four domains and 12 indicators that could be easily added to existing surveys, providing a comprehensive measurement of women's empowerment. The impact was immediate and profound. Countries implementing UEMNs could finally identify specific barriers to women's empowerment and design targeted interventions. This new measurement framework transformed policy decisions, resource allocation, and program design across multiple countries, creating more effective pathways to gender equity. Because here's what Renesha Berry understands so deeply: you cannot change what you cannot measure. You cannot unleash what you cannot see. But seeing is just the beginning. Consider what's happening in STEM fields in the United States. Women make up only 35% of employees in these sectors, despite representing a larger percentage of college graduates. The underrepresentation has deep historical roots, with systemic barriers including education access, implicit bias, and workplace cultures that often favor men. Yet organizations that have successfully increased women's representation in STEM have witnessed remarkable transformations, improvements in innovation, problem solving, and financial performance. As more women enter and advance in these fields, they serve as role models for younger generations, gradually shifting perceptions about who belongs and what leadership looks like. This is what Renesha Berry calls the ripple effect of women's power. One woman recognizing her value creates space for others to do the same. One barrier broken makes the next one easier to dismantle. One voice raised in courage inspires countless others to speak their truth. We see this ripple effect playing out dramatically in corporate leadership. In Ireland, women held only 18% of board seats in the largest publicly listed companies in 2018. Through a combination of advocacy, voluntary targets, mentorship programs, and increased visibility of qualified women candidates, that number reached 40% by 2025, more than doubling in 7 years. This dramatic increase coincided with improved corporate governance, more robust risk assessment, and stronger financial performance. The success in Ireland has become a model for other countries and regions, demonstrating that significant progress is possible with focused effort and commitment. As Renesha Berry reminds us, power isn't just about who sits at the table, it's about who sets the agenda, who frames the conversation, who determines what matters. When women know their power, they don't just take seats at existing tables, they build new tables, they question why we're sitting at tables at all. They reimagine the very architecture of our institutions. But let's be clear, this isn't happening nearly fast enough. The current pace of change in closing economic gender gaps is painfully slow. At current rates, it will take generations to achieve parity, generations of lost potential, generations of missed opportunities, generations of continued inequity. This is why Renesha Berry's work as a confidence coach is so vital, particularly for Black women professionals who face unique challenges at the intersection of gender and race. Because women's empowerment isn't just about external barriers, though those are real and significant. It's also about internal ones: the doubt, the hesitation, the tendency to shrink rather than shine. The most heartbreaking thing I see, Renisha told me, is brilliant, capable women who've been convinced they're not enough, who apologize for their ambition, who question their right to take up space. The Pink Parachute Diaries podcast, where I had the honor of interviewing Renesha, exists precisely to amplify the voices of Black women making waves in their fields, women who are often overlooked and undervalued despite their remarkable achievements. As the African American poet Maya Angelou once wrote, I am a woman phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. This isn't arrogance, it's acknowledgement, recognition of inherent worth and potential that has too often been denied. If more people and organizations embrace the idea that women's power is transformative, we would see acceleration toward gender equity across multiple dimensions. We would witness increased economic output and prosperity as more women fully participate in the workforce, more innovative solutions to complex problems through diverse leadership perspectives, stronger, more resilient organizations with balanced representation, policies that better address the needs of all community members, reduce poverty as women's economic empowerment benefits entire families and communities. Women's empowerment is one of the most effective sustainable development levers available to us, yet it remains severely underfunded. A shift in perspective could redirect resources toward this high impact area. But this isn't just about what organizations or governments should do. It's about what each of us can do today to help the women in our lives recognize and step into their power. It might be mentorship, offering guidance and support to women navigating career paths you've already walked. It might be sponsorship, actively advocating for women's advancement and creating opportunities for their voices to be heard. It might be allyship, using your privilege and position to challenge systems that limit women's potential. Or it might be something as simple yet profound as affirmation, telling the women in your life clearly and specifically what you see in them, their brilliance, their capability, their power. As Renesha Berry shared with me, sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply reflecting back to a woman the greatness you see in her that she hasn't yet recognized in herself. I want to leave you with this thought. We stand at a crossroads in human history. The challenges we face, climate change, political division, economic inequality, technological disruption, demand every ounce of human ingenuity, creativity, and wisdom we can muster. We cannot afford to leave half of humanity's potential untapped. When a woman recognizes her power, she doesn't just transform her own life, she transforms organizations, communities, nations, the world. This isn't hyperbole, it's mathematics, it's economics, it's social science. When we double the pool of fully empowered contributors to our shared challenges, we exponentially increase our capacity for solutions. So I challenge you today, look around your life, your workplace, your community. Where are women's voices missing? Where is women's leadership needed? Where is women's power being suppressed or ignored? And then ask yourself, what am I doing to change that? How am I helping the women in my life recognize and step into their power? How am I challenging systems that keep women small? Because the revolution we need won't come from technology or policy alone. It will come from millions of women recognizing their power and using it to transform our world. And it will come from those who support them in doing so. As Renesha Berry so powerfully reminds us, the sky isn't the limit when women know their power. It's just the beginning. The question isn't whether we can afford to fully empower women. The question is whether we can afford not to. The time for incremental change is over. The time for revolution is now. And it begins with you today, in this moment, deciding that you will be part of unleashing the most powerful force for transformation our world has ever known. Women who know their power,